Theodore Roosevelt once said, "If you could kick the person in the pants who is responsible for most of your trouble, you wouldn't sit for a month." You may have expected him to say something about what would happen to the other person, and were surprised when he says that it is you that won't be able to sit down. Today I'll be talking about my personal value for personal responsibility. I am well acquainted with this topic as it is something that I have had to learn throughout my life. What Roosevelt shows us through this quote is that we often lacked the ability to take personal responsibilities for ourselves and our actions. It is so much easier to blame other people for our problems and our mistakes. I know that I tend to want to do this all the time, but the problem is that it doesn't get you anywhere. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about how you can improve your life by taking personal responsibility for the things in your life. I'll also discuss how doing this has helped me and changed my perspective on life. First, I apply my value for personal responsibility to school. Before I started to apply this principle to my homework, I would blame everyone else for my inability to complete my work. I would say that it was the teacher's fault and that I wasn't doing my homework because the assignment was dumb or that they didn't teach it to me well enough. I would also say that I didn't have enough time to complete the assignment, even though I definitely did. I just would always procrastinate. When I finally started to admit that the problem was me, I began to take initiative and finish my assignments on time. Once I began to take responsibility and realized that it was my fault for not completing the work, I actually began to feel a lot better. I felt a sense of ownership over the tasks that I was doing, and that helped me to feel a sense of purpose. Now that I've discussed how not being responsible affected me in school, I'll discuss how taking responsibilities for my actions in relationships helped me to have more long-lasting relationships, and I'll talk about how responsibility has improved my perspective on life and helped me to become more successful. Secondly, I started to take responsibility for my actions in relationships. Before, I would see the problems and issues in my relationships as one-sided. I always believed that the relationship was struggling because of the things the other person had done or problems that they had. Eventually, I came to realize that it was not only the other person's issues that were causing problems, they were also my problems too. I realized that the relationships issues are never one-sided. They usually come from both parties involved. I learned how to see my own problems and take responsibility over them, and that allowed me to rebuild my relationships and help them to flourish. This also helped me personally because it allowed me to see areas in my life where I could grow and do better. Now that I have discussed how taking personal responsibility helped me in my homework and relationships, I will talk about how it has helped me to have a better perspective on life and become more successful. Finally, taking personal responsibility gave me a better perspective and helped me to feel a sense of purpose. It also helped me to become more successful in my life. Before I took ownership over my problems and shortcomings, I saw the world in a lot more negative light. I thought that everyone was against me and that they were working together to drag me down. Once I saw that most of the issues and problems I was dealing with were because of my own failures, I started to see people around me as allies and not enemies. I realized that not everyone around me just wanted to see me fail and that they actually wanted to help me. This realization also put the power back into my hands and allowed me to change my circumstances. I felt a sense of ownership over my life, and this allowed me to take control and to do better. To conclude this talk, I hope that you are all able to see the benefits of taking personal responsibility in your life. Taking responsibility is not about carrying shame or constantly putting yourself down for things. It's about allowing you to take control over your life and to be happier and more content with yourself and the people around you. Let me remind you of the quote we read at the beginning from the former President Theodore Roosevelt. "If you could kick the person in the pants who is responsible for most of your problems, you wouldn't sit for a month." Remember, the blame does not always belong to the other person. Sometimes we have to look within ourselves and see where we can do better in order to improve ourselves.